Well, LinkedIn may be the first social media site to go public, but others are sure to follow, and the LinkedIn IPO could lead to some copycat business plans making their way to the desk of Miura-Ko. And as a partner with Floodgate, a Silicon Valley-based firm that invests in very early-stage startups. And always good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Thanks for having me.
So right now, everybody's got this LinkedIn fever. Is that LinkedIn fever making its way to your desk right now?
Well, we've seen it for a long time. I think everyone's known that LinkedIn has a very, very successful business model. I think that so we'll continue to see that over the next few years.
But let's say over the last 3-4 months, as everybody knew LinkedIn was going public, have you had more small companies, maybe one guy, one woman, saying, hey, I've got the next LinkedIn, I've got the next Facebook, I've got the next Groupon coming and trying to get money from you?
Sure, and I think the part, though, that is underappreciated about LinkedIn's business that I found really fascinating is that people talk about it more like a consumer internet startup. And in fact, the part of the business that's been interesting to me and to new entrepreneurs is that it has a business software and services feel to it. And it's monetizing on data, it's providing services to professionals and to companies. And so that makes me, as a very early stage investor, more interested in new models that are popping up in business software and services.
So then what does that mean? Does that mean you're telling these potential startups, by the way, you got to get the business model right? Or does it tell you actually that there are people that are coming to you with pretty good ideas that are on target with what you're talking about that could end up taking some market share away from a company like LinkedIn?
It's not even really about market share, but what can we really learn from LinkedIn and their success, right? So I think there's a few things. Number one, data is really important. So they're capturing data about the professional careers of millions of people. And so I think that in and of itself makes a very interesting business model. The second component is that most people are really excited about consumer internet startups, but LinkedIn has proven that companies that sell to businesses can also be massively successful. And they don't need to have a huge direct sales force in order to be successful. They can have what we're calling consumerization of information technology companies, and that go-to-market strategy can be very effective.
All right, so you talk a little bit about the data, and there are a lot of people that ask the question, out of that, 100 million or so LinkedIn users, how much data are you really getting from those users, especially if they don't use it all the time? Mm-hmm. What is the way that you're measuring this with really small companies? If they say, we're able to get good data, how do you know if it's good data?
Well, it's not just about the data again. So it is, number one, what do you capture about people that makes LinkedIn very interesting. But I think the second component that made LinkedIn interesting at the very early stage was their maniacal focus on distribution. So one of the things that Reid Hoffman always talks about is the same way in real estate, it's about location, location, location. In these types of businesses where you have network effects, it's all about distribution, distribution, distribution. And they were always focused on how one new user would beget you more than one additional new user. And that business model has always worked really well for LinkedIn.
Yesterday on Bloomberg West, we had John Merriman, a well-known banker here in Silicon Valley, talking. And he said to Corey, I am concerned about what's going to happen to retail investors who are piling into these companies as they go public. What are you finding as the business plans come to you? Are you slowing down a little bit? Do you feel like all the exciting companies that might be growing in this area have already come to you, and how do you feel about all that?
That's never the case. So the pace of innovation always continues, right? And so it may not be that the next greatest thing is going to be a brand new social network, but there's always new and interesting innovations and ideas that are being born within Silicon Valley and throughout the United States.
And what does that mean for a company like LinkedIn? For example, you and I have spoken in the past about the talent wars that are taking place right now. Do you think there could be players inside LinkedIn that ultimately decide after the success of this IPO they want to go it alone? Is LinkedIn's biggest challenge going forward the fact that it has to hold on to some of this talent, some of these people who might be innovating and wanting to start their own companies?
Sure, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, you've seen this across the board with lots of the different companies that exist within Silicon Valley. Whether it's Google or Facebook or Zynga or LinkedIn, they all face this huge issue of how do you actually retain the talent that you actually have, and how do you you keep their interest? Because there's a shiny new thing around every corner here. And so engineers and marketeers alike, they're all looking at new opportunities and seeing the potential for massive wealth.
So at the end of the day, you have gotten a sense that there are businesses that are going to come out of the woodworks because of the LinkedIn IPO. It's going to create more opportunities.
Definitely. And I think that the mass public is now very aware of the potential for startups to go from an inkling of an idea to these huge billion-dollar businesses within a matter of a decade.
Great stuff. Ann, always good to see you. Ann Miura-Ko of Floodgate joining us with the next LinkedIn, perhaps.